Hey guys, check out the story of this anime here. Yuya is a chubby guy who has always suffered from bullying, not only at school but also at home, from his parents and siblings. The only one who really liked Yuya in his family was his grandfather, who left his house to him in his will. Inside this house, Yuya finds a door that leads him to another world, granting him fantastic powers and drastically changing his appearance. Interesting, right? But before we start with the story, please give that like and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Let's go to the recap. The anime begins with Yuya telling his melancholic story. Until then, his only luck in life was being born. At a certain moment, while walking on the street, Yuya witnesses some men bothering a girl. After hesitating a lot, he gathers courage and tries to defend the girl. He tells them that she doesn't want to do what they're asking and says it's not right. The thugs get completely upset with his interference and start beating him up. Luckily, Yuya survives but is badly hurt. The girl tries to offer help, but he refuses and leaves. At this moment, we are shown a flashback of Yuya talking to his grandfather, who tells him always to help those in need and that he will need a lot of courage for that. Yuya thinks and understands that his repulsive appearance bothers people, and he has always suffered from bullying, not only at school but also at his own home. His own parents and siblings treated him badly. Everything got worse when his grandfather passed away. He was the only person who was caring and loved him. Since his grandfather left his house and belongings only to Yuya, his family got furious and accused him of stealing the inheritance, then kicked him out of the house. After that, Yuya had to work and study hard to support himself and maintain the house. One day, frustrated from enduring so much bullying and abuse, Yuya punches the bathroom wall at his home. At that moment, a secret door reveals itself, and for the first time, Yuya finds his grandfather's secret room. Inside, there are various artifacts from his grandfather. Yuya thinks that his grandfather must have collected them while traveling around the world. However, it's not every day you see a red floating cube. Then, Yuya finds a type of portal and becomes interested. After opening it, he finds himself in another house and decides to enter to see what it's about. Soon after entering, a display appears in front of him with some information. It informs him that upon entering, he acquired some abilities, such as evaluation and resistance. He also obtained the title of Master of the House and Visitor from Another World for the first time. Yuya doesn't understand anything but continues exploring. Several screens keep appearing, explaining everything he sees. Yuya starts to realize that what he's experiencing is very similar to RPG games and becomes excited about it. Then he opens a window and sees a very beautiful place. On the table, he finds a letter stating that the previous owner lost his life and left everything inside to the first person who found it. Yuya finds some weapons that seem ridiculously strong. He starts keeping the weapons, realizing they are very dangerous. While doing so, a monstrous minotaur appears and approaches Yuya. Fortunately, a barrier surrounds the property, and the monster can't pass through it. Yuya looks at the creature and finds out its name. It's a level 300 bloody ogre. After overcoming his fear, Yuya decides to use his spear to attack the monster. Surprisingly, the spear goes through the ogre, and he defeats it easily. After that, he checks his status and notices that they have greatly increased. He then goes to where the ogre was and finds only a few items left. Tired, while trying to return home, a message appears saying that there are items to convert into real-world money. He accepts and realizes that the items he gained turned into real-world money. Later that night, Yuya starts feeling a lot of pain, and his body begins to transform. The next day, he wakes up completely transformed. He must have used some kind of poison. He notices that something is strange, but he can't see himself since he broke his mirror the previous night. He returns to the other world and starts observing some plants. At this moment, another monster tries to attack him, but like the previous one, it can't cross the magical barrier. Yuya grabs his spear and throws it at the infernal slime, which is easily defeated. Like the other monster, it leaves behind some rare items. He sells the items and decides that now he needs to buy a new school uniform since he's now in shape and doesn't need that oversized one anymore. Yuya continues his peaceful life in the other world, and his stats keep increasing drastically as he works and fights against invading monsters. But despite becoming much stronger, Yuya is still hesitant since his classes start the next day. He still carries the traumas from constant bullying he endured his whole life. However, despite thinking that way, when he goes to school, Yuya catches the attention of all the girls, who say he's very handsome and has long legs. Yuya finally arrives in his classroom and takes a seat. The bullies who used to beat him up call him and ask who the hell he is since they've never seen him before. At this moment, he reveals that he is Tenji Yuya, and everyone is shocked. They say there's no way he could be that stupid fat guy. Even his brothers observe him and are also completely shocked. After that, Yuya runs to the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror. He is taken aback to see that he has become a handsome guy and no longer has that repulsive appearance. At the end of that day, the students confront him and ask what he did to change so much. He tries to explain that many things happened during the vacation. While his brothers insult him, saying he's useless and couldn't have changed so drastically in such a short time, a limousine arrives, and a girl comes out calling for Yuya. She asks if it's really him, and he confirms. The girl is a bit confused because the last time she saw him, he was considerably rounder. Yuya doesn't understand how she knows his name, but she tells him that after he saved her, she investigated to find out who he is and managed to reach him to thank him. As a way of gratitude, she invites Yuya to study at SHI Institute, a school where only the elite of the elite study. Then, she apologizes for taking a long time to introduce herself and says her name is Hoju Kori. She is part of the student council at SHI Institute, and her father is the president of the council. Her father wanted Yuya to come to the institute after hearing that he saved his daughter. Yuya is taken aback and says he doesn't have the capacity to study at such a prestigious school. And at that moment, his brothers interrupt him and ask to enroll in his place. According to them, they are geniuses and superior to Yuya, both in sports and academics. Kori strongly denies their request and says she owes a great debt to Yuya, and she wouldn't want people who insult him in her school. She also mentions that she investigated all her actions and words while she was gathering information about Yuya. She reassures Yuya that he doesn't need to worry since SHI Institute values character more than academic strengths. Kori makes a proposal to him. She will show him around the school, and then he can decide if he wants to stay or not. Yuya accepts, and they head towards the school. Upon arriving, he is impressed by the beauty of the school and is soon taken to meet the school's president, Kori's father. The father bows and thanks Yuya for saving his daughter. Yuya humbly says he didn't do anything significant, but Kori appreciates his courage. Many people who passed by pretended not to see anything, but he stopped and tried to help her. Kori's father says that this is evidence of his character, which is what they value most at SHI Institute. Once again, he makes an offer, inviting Yuya to study at the institute and waiving any tuition fees. Yuya remains hesitant, as he believes only prodigies study at that school. The director then makes a new proposal. Yuya can stay and attend classes for a day, and if he likes it and feels suitable, he can stay longer. At that moment, a teacher enters the room and says she will be his teacher for the day. They go to the classroom, and Yuya is introduced to the class. Upon seeing him, everyone is stunned. Yuya, still haunted by the bullying he endured all his life, begins to think it's because of his ugly and repulsive appearance. However, that's not the case. Everyone is shocked because he now looks handsome and attractive. The girls in the class are all interested in him, and the teacher instructs Yuya to sit in a traditional anime spot, as you all must know, the last seat by the window, a classic in anime. Next to Yuya, there's a gothic girl observing him. The teacher instructs her to sit beside him and share her book since Yuya doesn't have his yet. She does so quickly. Feeling a bit shy, and with Yuya's insecurities, he starts to think the girl already hates him. After this, Yuya begins to experience how classes are at SHI Institute. He mentions that it's not much different from the classes he's used to, but the significant difference is that the students participate much more, which surprises him. At the end of the class, a classmate invites Yuya to go to the cafeteria for a meal. There, facing several options, Yuya is indecisive, and his classmate advises him to go with the daily special. They grab their food and sit at a table with another boy named Shingo. They start talking about anime, and Yuya is excited to meet people with similar interests. While eating, Yuya notices that everyone around is watching him. He asks the boys if it's because of his different uniform, but they respond that it's because of his face. After the meal, Yuya goes to the principal's office and expresses that he really liked the school and would accept the offer. After leaving the office, Kori is waiting for him outside. She invites him to hang out, and they go to the shopping center and eat a type of crepe. While eating, Yuya asks how she recognized him when they first met, even though he looked like Pig God from One Punch Man. She responds that despite having lost weight, his eyes remained the same kind and sincere eyes she had seen before. They both try each other's crepes, and then Yuya returns home and decides to return to the other world one more time. He continues fighting monsters and leveling up, but he notices that he's progressing more slowly. He decides to leave his house and venture deeper into the forest, seeking stronger monsters to gain more experience. In the forest, he finds several people lying on the ground and a horrifying monster with a mouth full of blood, cornering someone who seems to be human. He decides to attack the monster, which repels his first attack. While the monster is distracted, Yuya swiftly delivers a powerful blow, knocking it down. Afterward, he looks at the girl who was being attacked, and she seems a bit distressed. She talks to him and warns him that something is on his back. As Yuya turns around, the monstrous creature attacks him again. Yuya counterattacks and summons his slash-all sword. He literally cuts the monster in half. When he checks on the girl, she faints. At that moment, Yuya hears people shouting for her and decides to leave. It's then revealed that she is someone very important, with Yuya wondering how the girl he saved is doing. But he doesn't worry much because he saw soldiers coming to help her. He sets that aside and realizes that he has few clothes left now that he has lost weight. So, he decides to go shopping, now that he has plenty of money. He goes to the mall, and as usual, wherever he goes, he attracts people's attention, especially girls. After that, it is shown that a modeling agency is having trouble, as the boy model, who was supposed to participate in the shoot, is very late, and the chief photographer decides to look for someone in the mall to replace the guy who is running late. You already know what's going to happen from now on. The photographer and his team go around the mall looking for someone to replace the boy. Meanwhile, Yuya is having a hard time choosing clothes. While he picks some clothes, two girls approach and ask if he is available now. They say they can accompany him if he wants. Yuya gets nervous and declines, but in a way that makes the girls smitten with him. They become completely paralyzed, and Yuya leaves. As he continues, the photographer bumps into him while going down the escalators. Upon looking at Yuya, he decides that he will be the perfect model. He explains the situation to Yuya, and seeing that many people depended on those photos, Yuya decides to help, even though he's not very skilled at it. The girl who participates with him in the photos tries to teach him and calms Yuya down. Yuya finds her amazing and decides to give his best not to fall behind. They continue, but Yuya remains embarrassed as they have to stay very close to each other. Meanwhile, the anime shows us that girl Yuya saved in the forest of the other world. She seems to have recovered and remembers Yuya. She decides to go out and reunite with him, saying that she has the obligation to thank him for saving her life. The guards try to warn her of the danger, but she insists, and they have no choice but to comply with her requests. After that, we return to the mall, and Yuya and the girl take a break. They start talking, and Yuya begins to cough. She offers him a handkerchief, but he says he doesn't need it. He continues talking to her and admiring how she makes everything look so easy, something that was very difficult for him. Yuya asks her why she became a model. She says that since she was young, her parents worked a lot and didn't pay much attention to her. Being a model was a way for them to pay more attention to her. At that moment, the boy who was supposed to be the model appears. All the girls in the mall know him and scream for him. He says he's late because he drank too much the previous day. He approaches Myu, the girl, and tells them to finish the photo session quickly. Then, he corners her against the wall. Yuya sees that she is uncomfortable and decides to defend her, telling the guy that she is not enjoying this. The boy gets angry and tries to punch Yuya. Yuya simply gives him a knockout blow, and the guy falls to the ground. Yuya panics, as the boy is quite famous. But contrary to what he thought, the girls who were watching start cheering for him. The playboy gets indignant, claims he does boxing and got defeated. At that moment, the photographer says he filmed everything and that if the guy didn't want to end his career, he should leave immediately. So, the guy leaves with his tail between his legs. After that, Myu thanks Yuya for protecting her from him. She also says that lately, he has been stalking her, and she didn't know what to do. After that, the photographer asks Yuya if he would like to pursue a modeling career since he has a talent for it. Yuya politely thanks him and says that he learned a lot that day, but he thinks he is not ready for it yet and must decline for now. After that, the photographer gives him a bunch of new clothes as payment for the job he did. He says he would like to pay in cash, but since Yuya is not signed with any agency, it's complicated. Yuya tries to refuse but ends up accepting. Then he leaves. Later on, he decides to go to the other world and train a bit. At that moment, we are shown that the princess and her soldiers were attacked while searching for Yuya. And again, Yuya appears and saves them. He defeats monster after monster with amazing ease. After he finishes, he begins to treat the wounded, and the princess comes to talk to him. She says she came because there was something she wanted to tell him. And out of nowhere, absolutely out of nowhere, she asks you guys to subscribe and leave that like, subscribe, come on. Actually, she asks Yuya to marry her. the leader of the knights asks her what on earth she's thinking, and she says it was obviously a marriage proposal. He says he noticed that, but wants to know why on earth she would ask someone she had never seen in her life to marry her. She starts arguing with her guard, and Yuya interrupts, saying that if they stay there any longer, they would be attacked by monsters again. He invites them to his house, and he also mentions that his house is in that forest. They are impressed that someone lives there, as that forest is known for having many monsters and being very inhospitable. Upon arrival, they introduce themselves. The guard is named Owen and serves the girl, who is named Lexia von Arcelia, the princess of the Arcelia kingdom. She thanks him again for saving her and her soldiers. Yuya, upon learning that she is a princess, gets a bit nervous and apologizes for his manners. He introduces himself. They find his name very strange, as it's uncommon for that world. The soldier tells Yuya that the king, Lexia's father, would like to have an audience with him in person to properly thank him for saving his daughter. But he says that Yuya would need 5 days for that. Yuya then says it will take him those 5 days, as it will be during the Golden Week, a kind of holiday in Japan. Owen, the guard, says that's not a problem. As soon as he can, he should go to meet the king. After that, they leave, and the princess says that next time, she will win his heart. Yuya returns and goes to school. As expected, wherever he goes, he attracts the attention of girls, who are smitten with him. He arrives at school and speaks to the student council president, who wishes him a good time at school. He is introduced to the class again. After that, Yuya and a girl watch as some boys play soccer. Yuya finds it amazing. At one point, a boy kicks the ball very hard, and the ball would hit Keed, the girl, next to him. But before it reaches her, Yuya makes a crazy move Ala Ibrahimovic and scores a spectacular goal from far away. After saving her and everyone being shocked, he asks if she's okay, and at that moment, another girl falls for Yuya. This guy could have the whole school if he wanted. The boy who kicked the ball comes to apologize to Keed, and she says it's fine, because Yuya didn't let her get hurt. After that, Yuya is shown in the classroom. Downstairs, Keed waves at Yuya during physical education class. And at that moment, a gang of bikers called Red Ogre Gang invades the school and starts causing trouble. Cory steps in and tells them to leave because the police will soon arrive. At that moment, Yuya's sly brother and sister appear, and they say they called that gang to get revenge because Cory invited their idiot brother and made fun of them. Cory again says the police are coming, but they say it will take a while for them to arrive, and in the meantime, they can cause a big mess and even kidnap her. Upon seeing this, Yuya thinks of going to save her, but remembering all those years of bullying and suffering, he starts to hesitate. But he regains his consciousness and goes to save her. He opens the window and simply jumps from the 4th floor. Down below, he runs towards Cory. The gangsters attack him, but he easily dodges and deals with all of them easily. He reaches Cory and asks if she's okay. She confirms, and quickly one of the thugs comes at him with his motorcycle trying to hit Yuya. But unfortunately for him, Yuya dodges all his attacks. After that, he strikes with force, and the motorcycle explodes. The police arrive and arrest the criminals. Yuya goes to see how Cory is, and she kind of loses strength and almost falls, but our hero catches her. After that, the leader of the Red Ogre Gang gets angry with Yuya's brother since they were all arrested because of him and grabs him by the neck. But before he could harm him, Yuya arrives to save his brother. After being rescued, his brother asks why he did that, as he had mistreated Yuya for years. Yuya responds that it's true he went through painful moments because of them, but he simply can't forget his family. And at that moment, his 2 brothers start to cry emotionally. After that, he meets his classmates who congratulate him and say that what he did was really amazing. With Yuya heading to the other world and deciding to explore the Black Forest to get stronger. Despite hearing that there are strong monsters in that forest, Yuya continues to defeat them all with ease. So, he decides to call it a day. But as he sheaths his sword, he hears an orc seemingly beating something. Yuya investigates and finds an orc, which appears to be very strong, attacking a baby wolf. Yuya checks the orc stats and realizes it's much stronger than him. He initially decides to leave but remembers his grandfather's teachings about not letting the weak suffer. He then grabs his spear and throws it at the orc, charging at it with his sword. To his surprise, the orc is completely obliterated by his spear attack. Yuya is shocked since the monster's level was much higher than his. Afterward, he checks on the little wolf, who tries to resist but collapses from exhaustion. Yuya takes care of the wolf, and the little creature recovers, quickly becoming friends with Yuya, who decides to keep it as his pet and take it home. Yuya checks the wolf's stats and is surprised to find that it's quite strong even at its small size. He names the wolf Night due to its dark appearance. After that, Yuya checks the items left by the orc, hoping to see if his stats increased, but unfortunately, nothing changes as he expected. He leaves Night at home and goes to school. When he arrives, he asks his classmates where he can find a pet shop because he now has a little dog. Everyone wants to see it, but Yuya says he doesn't have any photos. They agree to go to the pet shop later with a girl. Yuya returns home and puts a leash on Night, who seems happy with it. Yuya takes Night for a walk, and as usual, the dog attracts attention from everyone around. Then, at a certain moment, he encounters Kori. Yuya introduces Night to her, and she finds him really cute. She asks about the dog's breed, but Yuya says he doesn't know and that he adopted him. Later, Mio, the girl with whom Yuya did the photo shoot in the previous video, also arrives. Yuya asks why she's there, and she says she lives nearby and was on her way home. Kori asks if the girl is the famous model, and Yuya confirms. He introduces Kori to Mio, and they chat for a bit. Kori seems a bit sad and jealous. After Mio leaves, Kori asks if Yuya and Mio are dating. Yuya is surprised and says no, and that he doesn't match up with such a beautiful girl. At that moment, a thief steals a lady's purse, and Yuya lets Night go to catch the thief. The little dog catches the thief and brings him to Yuya. The thief breaks free and comes at Kori with a knife, but as expected, Yuya easily defeats him and holds him until the police arrive. Everyone at the scene applauds him, and Kori thanks him. Then, Yuya goes back to the other world and continues hunting monsters in the Black Forest to level up. He also improves his bond with Night, who helps him a lot against their enemies. After that, Yuya notices that both his and Night's stats have increased. Then, a hole opens up, revealing a cave. Yuya enters and starts exploring. He comes across a skeleton, and Night shows him a book with "The Great Sage" written on the cover. Yuya quickly connects it to the Great Sage, the owner of the house he found. He starts reading the book, and the Great Sage begins to tell his story. He says that he was so powerful that he was invited to the divine realm by the gods but refused their request to become their friend. The Great Sage tells Yuya that the strength he possesses is even greater than he imagines. He lived his life in loneliness but doesn't want the same fate for Yuya. He advises Yuya to build relationships with people he can truly trust, as this will allow him to share his secrets and not feel alone. Afterward, the Great Sage teaches Yuya about magic, explaining that everything he knows about magic is in that book. However, someone from another world like Yuya doesn't have magic channels. These channels are structures present in the bodies of almost every being in that other world, allowing magic to flow and making the person a magic wielder. Seeing this issue, the Great Sage transfers his magic channels to Yuya and tells him to take good care of them since they are the strongest in that world. Yuya receives them and quickly feels magic coursing through his body. He then starts studying magic relentlessly. He decides to put it into practice with Night. After some attempts, they finally succeed. In his first magic spell, he wields a powerful destruct. The king asks if he managed to find Yuya, and he responds affirmatively, mentioning that he found him in the Black Forest. He also notes that Yuya seems to be from another country, given his unusual name. The knight informs the king that he should give a warning to Princess Lexia because she had just proposed to Yuya when they met again. Upon hearing this, the king becomes furious, grabs his sword, and starts smashing things inside the palace, shouting about who Yuya thinks he is to seduce his beloved daughter Lexia. Afterward, Yuya returns to school, unable to stop thinking about magic. He realizes that he must be cautious about how he will use his magic. At that moment, the teacher announces that next week they will have some off-campus study days. They will participate in a camping trip in groups of 4. Yuya meets the members of his group, and they express their intention to work hard together. One of the group members observes Yuya and comments on why he has been drawing so much attention lately. At some point, Yuya mentions that he doesn't have a backpack, causing some concern. They decide to go to the mall to buy a backpack for Yuya. A while later, they go shopping, and Kaori joins them at Yuya's request. Other students are surprised to see her there since she is the director's daughter and quite famous at school. They arrive at the mall, and Kaori picks out a backpack for Yuya, which he really likes and decides to purchase. Then, they continue exploring the mall. They eventually visit an arcade, and Shingo notices a claw machine with a plush toy he has always wanted. Yuya offers to help him and uses his ability to identify weak points to quickly win the plush toy that Shingo wanted. He then asks Yuya to get one for her too, and just like before, Yuya easily wins the toys. He continues doing this until everyone in the group has what they wanted. It's as if he's using real-life hacks. Afterward, the girls split off to go shopping for clothes, while the boys stop at a cafe to order some drinks while waiting for the girls. At one point, Yuya thanks them for hanging out with him and mentions that he's having a lot of fun. Suddenly, a fire alarm goes off, causing a commotion in the mall. Yuya remembers that the girls were still on the upper floors and asks a passerby if the three girls have come down yet. One of the girls calls Yuya and informs him that they haven't managed to come down yet due to the fire. Upon learning this, Yuya doesn't hesitate and rushes up the stairs in search of the three girls. In his thoughts, he realizes he can't let them down. He reaches the floor where they are, but the fire has spread. He uses water magic to cover his body and runs through the flames. He finally finds the girls huddled in a corner and calls out to Kaori, who loses consciousness upon hearing him. After finding them, Yuya uses his abilities to check if there are any more people in need of help. Fortunately, everyone else has been evacuated, leaving only the girls. He carries all three girls on his back and rushes to get them out. At one point, the present he had bought for Kaori falls to the ground, catching his attention. However, Yuya realizes that he has no other option but to descend. He decides to break the floor of the building, creating a curtain of dust, and successfully reaches the ground floor with the girls. The firefighters ask if they are okay, and Yuya confirms that they are all fine. Fortunately, the firefighters scold him as well, but thanks to his actions, everyone is safe. Kaori's father arrives and thanks Yuya again for saving his daughter a second time. Yuya then gives Kaori the plush toy he had won for her from the claw machine, making her very happy and grateful. After this, Yuya returns home and starts feeling sad about not having anyone in his family. However, as soon as he opens the door, Night jumps on him with excitement. Following that, we see a fierce battle between a girl and a rabbit. At one point, the rabbit asks who she is and why she's attacking a sacred being like him. The girl is enveloped in a red aura and explains that she has come to extend an invitation to the sacred rabbit to join her in destroying the world, as there is no salvation. The rabbit refuses, and the girl departs, leaving the rabbit with the task of passing on his technique called the sacred kick to someone. We can probably guess who that someone is going to be, but we'll have to find out in the next video. Did you enjoy today's video? If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on our future videos. Alright, see you next time. And finally, as always, I've got an incredible video for you telling the story of Cain, a boy who was reborn in another world with incredibly strong powers and suddenly ends up having 2 fiancées. At only 10 years old, go check it out, it's sensational. Alright, see ya. With Yuya reading and learning about magic from the book he found. He learns that magic works based on one's imagination, and soon, Yuya manages to learn a teleportation skill. He heads to the forest and begins exploring new areas with Night. They enter a cave and spot some monsters, but as usual, they easily defeat them. After finishing their exploration of the cave, they collect various items. Before they leave, Night suddenly runs off to show something to Yuya. Night uses camouflage and approaches a girl who is completely surrounded by monsters. Yuya tries to go to her, but Night stops him, seemingly asking him to wait and see what she will do. The girl then starts fighting the monsters, but at a certain point, she is thrown aside, and the monster monster moves in for a final attack. However, before it can strike, Yuya arrives and saves the young girl. Soon after, dozens of new monsters appear, and Yuya uses his whip to defeat them all. Yuya had never used the whip before and is surprised by its strength. Afterward, he checks on the girl. Yuya notices that she's slightly injured and decides to take her home, but Knight doesn't seem to agree with the idea. At that moment, the girl wakes up and is startled to find herself being carried. Yuya offers her a potion to heal her wounds, and she hesitates. To prove it's not poison, Yuya takes a sip himself. She accepts, and soon all her wounds are completely healed. She then asks who he is, and Yuya introduces himself. Shortly after, the girl introduces herself as Luna. Yuya asks her what she was doing there, and Luna explains that she was in the middle of training when the monsters appeared and defeated her. She also asks what he was doing there since it's a very dangerous area. Yuya, hesitant to reveal he lives there, says he was training with Knight. Luna apologizes for Yuya carrying her all dirty and sweaty and expresses her desire to find a river or a spring to take a bath. Yuya says it's not a problem and fetches his portable hot spring he obtained by defeating the legendary deer and tells her to bathe there. Luna finds it amazing and mentions that the bath feels really good. While they chat, she asks if he wants to join her in her training since he's strong enough to train there. He agrees, and she gets excited, saying that she will become much stronger. After that, they continue to battle monsters and grow even stronger. Yuya remarks that she has improved a lot, but unfortunately, he will have to leave the next day for a long journey. Luna feels a bit sad but eventually accepts it and thanks him for the days of training they had. After their training, Yuya goes to take a bath with Knight, and a little later, Luna joins them, making Yuya quite nervous. He tries to leave, but she hugs him from behind and expresses her gratitude, saying that she became stronger thanks to him. The next day, Yuya and his classmates go on a camping trip. They arrive at a hall where their teacher explains how the outdoor camping days will work. She also mentions that they will have to hunt and search for food on their own. Then, they reveal that the location they are in is only for the teachers, and they will have to stay in tents in the middle of the forest. After they prepare, Yuya and Keed decide to go fishing to catch some fish for their meal. However, the river is completely crowded, with many people trying to fish. Yuya uses his powers to discover a more secluded spot where there are plenty of fish. However, Keed asks if it's difficult to fish in such shallow water. Yuya says yes, but that's not a problem. He starts to take off his shoes and enters the water. Yuya looks at the fish and mentions that their movements are much slower than those of the monsters in the forest, so catching them won't be a difficult task. Soon, he begins to catch fish one after another and gets carried away. In no time, Yuya attracts a crowd around him and completely fills his bucket with fish. Keed says it's already enough, and Yuya apologizes, saying he got a bit carried away. Later, we return to the other world, and Luna says she had various results in her training. She remembers Yuya and mentions that he's different from her, as he is a good person. She has been an assassin since childhood, covered in the blood of those she's sent to their demise. She laments not having met him earlier, as if that had happened, he could have saved her. Then, Yuya and Keed return and show how many fish they caught. Rin is very surprised to learn that Yuya caught them using only his hand. Later, they gather all the food they obtain. Yuya analyzes everything and removes any dangerous items. Then, they go to show the results to the teacher, who praises them a lot. She says that no team has ever brought so much, and everything they brought is edible. However, she tells them not to celebrate yet because the food they prepare with those ingredients will also be evaluated. She then asks which of the students in their group will cook. Without thinking, everyone points directly at Yuya. They head to the kitchen, and Yuya quickly prepares everything and tells them to serve themselves. Their classmates start eating, but they soon stop and show no reaction. Then, the teachers arrive to evaluate the food as well. Just like their classmates, they also eat the food and become paralyzed. Shortly after, everyone exclaims that the food is incredibly delicious, even better than refined restaurant dishes. Yuya is very happy to know that everyone enjoyed his cooking. After they finish eating, the teacher casually asks if Yuya wouldn't like to marry her, shocking everyone. She says she's very sloppy, doesn't know how to cook or do laundry, and with someone like Yuya, she could enjoy delicious meals without worrying about the rest. Everyone questions what she's thinking, especially since she's their teacher. She says it doesn't have to be now, and she's willing to wait as long as it takes. She pretends to be sad when she sees everyone criticizing her, and Yuya, seeing her seemingly sad, says some comforting words. He mentions that she is an excellent teacher. Upon hearing this, she jumps on Yuya and puts his face in a rather suggestive place, while Kid, jealous, tries to pull Yuya away. After that, Yuya uses his teleportation magic to prepare something for Knight to eat. He tells Knight that he likes it when they are happy eating his food, and that's why he was so happy to cook for his classmates today. Later, they go to change, and everyone looks at Yuya. He asks if something is strange, and his classmate responds that his body looks strange because he's all muscular and tough. On the next day, we see that something broke the tents and some of the students' belongings while they were away. For some reason, the blonde boy in Yuya's team looks shocked and cries as if he knows what caused all of this. Next, Yuya's group goes out to search for food for breakfast. While they are heading out, the anime shows us a giant footprint. Yuya checks on Akira, the blonde boy, who is frozen in front of a tree. They notice that the tree is all scratched, and soon realize that it was caused by a bear. The bear appears, and they run to escape from it. The bear chasing them reaches the campsite, and the teachers try to help the students while waiting for the police to arrive. However, while running from the bear, the teacher stumbles, and just as the bear is about to attack, Yuya simply stops the bear with his bare hands, which makes sense to us, but is unimaginable to everyone present. Not only that, but Yuya grabs the bear and gives it a knockout punch, knocking the huge beast unconscious. As expected, everyone who witnessed this is completely shocked. Yuya asks if the teacher is okay, and she says yes. She mentions that she should normally scold him for fighting a bear, but if it weren't for him, she'd probably be gone by now, and thanks Yuya for saving her. She also asks if he wants to take her as a reward, which he obviously declines. Then, Kori appears and says that the bear will be used as a guard bear in that forest, and if it causes any more problems, they'll have a delicious barbecue with its meat. This way, the camping trip comes to an end. Later, Yuya returns to the other world and decides to hunt some monsters because today is the day Lexia will come to take him to the king. Shortly after, she arrives and thanks Yuya for accepting her request. She calls Yuya to follow her to the palace. However, at that moment, Knight strangely jumps onto the princess, and then a tree falls where the princess was standing. We see that Knight ended up saving the princess. At the scene of the incident, there are some threads, and Yuya already suspects who might have caused this. He enters the forest and goes after whoever caused all of this. He sees that, as he suspected, it was Luna who orchestrated the attack. Lexia arrives, and Yuya tells her that Luna was the one who tried to harm her. But he apologizes to Lexia and asks for a moment alone with Luna to understand what's going on. He simply can't imagine Luna being an evil person. Lexia agrees but insists on joining them. She is then teleported to Yuya's home with him. Arriving there, Yuya places Luna on the bed and looks at her intently. While Luna is in bed, Lexia asks Yuya about the strange magic he used that instantly took him back home. Yuya, as if it's normal, simply says he was experimenting with creating a teleportation spell and asks if there's something wrong with that. Lexia tells him that obviously there is something wrong since this kind of magic is only seen in fairy tales and has never been confirmed anywhere in the world. She also mentions that he should keep it a secret because if the society in their world finds out, it will cause a huge commotion worldwide and may even lead to war. Yuya asks if it's that absurd, and Lexia confirms it, making him promise not to use it in front of others without thinking. Yuya agrees. Then, Lexia turns to Luna, who appears to be sleeping, and asks her how long she's going to pretend to be asleep. Luna opens her eyes, and Lexia asks her to tell more about herself and why she tried to get rid of her. Luna begins to tell her story, revealing that she is an orphan who struggled to survive every day with no one to rely on. Until one day, a man took her in. This man taught her how to read and write and also trained her in assassination techniques because he was part of the Dark Guild. Just like him, Lexia also joined the Dark Guild and became known as a headhunter. One day, she received a mission to eliminate the Princess of Arcelia, but as everyone can see, she failed miserably. Luna mentions that they can do whatever they want with her because if the Dark Guild discovers her failure, they will send other assassins to eliminate her. However, contrary to what she expected, Lexia, instead of eliminating her, asks her to serve as one of her bodyguards, explaining that this way, even the Dark Guild can't easily attack her. Luna finds it strange and tries to argue, but Lexia insists, leaving her with no choice. Then, Luna talks about Yuya's bath, saying he's really good at it and it leaves her skin feeling so soft. Upon hearing this, Lexia can't resist and immediately asks Yuya to let her join in. They go together, and ask if Yuya wants to come too, but of course, Yuya, being quite shy, declines. After their bath, Yuya prepares dinner, and they start eating. As always, they praise his cooking. Lexia hugs him, and Luna, not wanting to be left out, pretends to be weak, so he has to feed her too. Yuya believes her and feeds her. Lexia gets jealous and asks him to feed her as he did with Luna, which he does, making them both very happy. The next day, they return to Owen, who is happy to see that everyone is safe. He asks about Yuya's dog's name and thanks him for previously saving the princess. He also inquires about the new girl. Lexia tells him that Luna is an assassin who tried to eliminate her but has now hired her as a bodyguard. This was supposed to be a secret, and obviously, Owen, as the head of the princess's guard, is shocked to hear this. They surround Luna and point their weapons at her. Lexia explains that she slept with her the previous night, and if she intended to do anything bad, she would have already done it. Owen eventually gives in and accepts Lexia's request. At that moment, Yuya mentions that he won't be able to see the king anymore because it would take 3 days to do so, and his time is running out. Lexia is saddened, and Owen says there's no other way. He shows Yuya the way and tells him to follow the road, and he'll easily reach the palace. After that, Luna and Lexia start to leave. However, Luna gets off her horse and runs to Yuya, giving him a big kiss on the cheek. Lexia, seeing this, becomes jealous but Owen doesn't stop the carriage. Afterward, while Yuya is walking through the forest, he finds a river with something like a hot spring. As he and Knight relax, they notice a strange creature nearby, resembling a little pig. Yuya checks his status and realizes that this simple interaction has tamed the creature. He looks at his abilities and notices a skill called Sacred Solo, which he instructs the creature to use. The creature activates it, creating an area where those inside receive regenerative status effects and recover quickly. Yuya names it Akatsuki because it's red like the setting sun. At that moment, Knight shows Yuya a clock, and he realizes that it's time to like and subscribe to the video. So, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, too. In fact, he sees that he's late and needs to return to school quickly. Fortunately, he manages to do so, and his teacher makes an announcement. They will have a kind of interclass competition, and this year's theme is ball sports. Later, during physical education, everyone starts training in soccer, and since Yuya doesn't know the rules well, he decides to stay in goal. At one point, a ball is kicked hard towards Yuya's goal, but he kind of teleports and catches the ball. Obviously, everyone is shocked to see this. Yuya asks what he should do next, and his friend informs him that he should kick the ball as far and as hard as he can. He probably shouldn't have done that. Yuya follows his friend's advice and kicks the ball with such tremendous force that it knocks everyone down, just like in Super 11. The next day, Yuya declines a proposal to enter the entertainment world. He says he appreciates it but must decline because normal school life is more enjoyable than anything else. The principal is indignant and asks why, as anyone else would jump at the opportunity. Then, Mio appears and talks to Yuya. Yuya's friends are surprised to learn that he knows her, as she is a very famous model in the country. At that moment, Kori appears and drops a pamphlet. The principal picks one up and gets an idea. She will enter the school and film Yuya participating in sports events. Afterward, the anime cuts to Yuya in the other world, where he is training. He mentions having difficulty getting stronger and decides to explore the dark forest further. In this part of the forest, he notices trees that are much harder and more resistant, requiring a great deal of force or magic to break. Suddenly, while examining the area, a gigantic boar appears. It attacks Yuya, sending him flying. Yuya instructs Knight and Akatsuki to move away and tries to drink a potion to recover. He realizes he won't be able to fight and protect Knight, and the boar charges quickly. At that moment, a voice declares that it will save him. Out of nowhere, a rabbit appears and strikes the boar, sending it flying. The boar returns, but the rabbit completely annihilates it, along with several of those solid trees we saw earlier, impressing Yuya greatly. Afterward, the rabbit instructs the three of them to demonstrate their kicks. Akatsuki and Knight go first, and the rabbit praises Knight but says there's room for improvement. Then Yuya takes his turn, and the rabbit encourages him, saying he seems to have talent. He proceeds to demonstrate his kick, which, with the displacement of air alone, pierces several of those hard trees we saw earlier. The rabbit tells Yuya to give it a try, and he continues to practice until he successfully knocks down his first tree. Then, the rabbit says he will train Yuya in a real battle and immediately attacks him. Yuya later asks the rabbit why it is training him. The rabbit explains that it has chosen him to be its successor. They, the sacred beings, have the duty to train their apprentices to maintain the balance of the world. They pass on their techniques to fight against the Vils, evil beings that spread malice throughout the world. Yuya says he can't become a sacred being like the rabbit but would like to learn its techniques to protect everyone he met in that world. The rabbit suggests a deal: it will teach Yuya its techniques, and Yuya will teach it how to use magic. They agree on this arrangement. They continue their training, and the time comes for Yuya to face a gigantic boar, much larger than the one he struggled with before. However, this time, Yuya defeats it and feels ecstatic about it. After defeating the massive boar, he obtains numerous drops, all of which are ranked SS. Yuya asks the rabbit what this means. The rabbit explains that these are levels, and SS is quite high. Above that is the rank SSS, and the highest of all is the legendary rank, which only the Vils can achieve. At this moment, Yuya is notified that he has undergone a species evolution and starts to glow. The rabbit assures him not to worry, as this means he will become much stronger. Although this is very rare for humans, there's no change in appearance, but Yuya gains several new abilities. The rabbit then tells him to go home and rest. The following day, the school competitions begin. The first event is a ping-pong match between Yuya and a man who appears to be around 30 years old. The man serves and scores against Yuya, but on the second serve, Yuya says that while he might not be like an ordinary student compared to the gigantic boar he fought, this is nothing. On the next serve, Yuya manages to return it, hitting the ball so hard that it creates a hole in the table. Realizing his mistake, he withdraws and runs away, but at that moment, Keed calls him to substitute for an injured member of the volleyball team. While playing volleyball, another extraordinary event takes place. Yuya spikes the ball so hard that it shatters the gymnasium floor. Afterward, Kaori's tennis partner gets injured, and Yuya is also asked to step in. During the match, he realizes that Kaori is terrible at tennis, and he has to win the game by himself. However, this time, he manages to control his strength and doesn't cause any damage as he did before. At the end of the day, Kaori and Yuya leave together, and he tells her that being with her makes him very happy. Upon hearing this, Kaori becomes even more infatuated with him and asks him to close his eyes. After he does, she gives him a kiss on the cheek. With Kaori and Yuya studying together at his place, Yuya struggles with a few things, but Kaori quickly lends a hand. Yuya expresses his gratitude, and she replies that it's no big deal, given that he helped her with classical Japanese and English too. Later, on their way back from school, Yuya expresses his worries about exams, especially in math, a subject he's not particularly strong in. At that moment, Kaori suddenly blushes and asks if he'd like to study at her place again. Clever move. They head over, and at one point, Kaori mentions needing to use the restroom. Yuya guides her, but instead of finding the bathroom, she discovers a door to another world. She's left stunned. Yuya arrives and tries to explain what it is. He ends up revealing everything, mentioning that it connects to another world and encourages Kaori to try putting her hand inside. When she attempts, a barrier prevents her from crossing, and Yuya explains that only authorized individuals can enter. Yuya explains that the other world is full of magic, monsters, and things different from Earth. He credits the skills he gained there for defeating the biker gang and saving her during the mall fire. Subsequently, he takes her to the other world, and she's mesmerized by everything. Yuya mentions that for some reason, upon entering that world, he lost weight and gained muscles. He expresses his desire to show her the forest, but due to the dangers posed by monsters, he suggests they visit another time. He also asks Kaori not to tell anyone about this. She's ecstatic about sharing a secret with him, stating that it makes their relationship special. Next, we're introduced to Lexia. She goes to speak with her father, the king, who notices a different lady accompanying them. Luna then boldly admits in front of the king that she attempted to assassinate the princess but ended up becoming her bodyguard. The king decides to do what others haven't and draws his sword, moving towards Luna. However, he finds himself unable to attack her, impressed that she recognized the nature of his slashing sword. She can easily cut through anything that tries to stop her. Instead of trying to halt the sword, Luna uses her threads to immobilize the king's arms. Lexia intervenes, yelling at her father about his actions towards Luna. She threatens to hate him if he continues this behavior. She emphasizes that it was her who prevented Luna's death and made her a personal guard. After the confrontation, the king accepts Luna and feels very upset by Lexia's statement about hating him. Later, he talks to Owen and learns that Lexia spent the night at Yuya's house, which infuriates him. Again, similar to before, the king gets enraged and starts destroying everything in sight. Following that, a masked man appears, seemingly from the nobility, as his subordinate addresses him as Your Highness. This man states something crucial: it's time for Lexia and her father to go down. We discover that he's the king's son and Lexia's brother. He plans to eliminate the king and his own sister to become the new ruler of the kingdom. To accomplish this, he will use his special weapon, a sphere that prevents magic use within a certain area. He plans that by infiltrating the palace, it will be easy to eliminate his father and sister. He also mentions that he just needs to blame Yuya, as no one knows him. Following this revelation, we're shown Yuya. He had some free time to visit the palace, as the school gave a 3-day break to compensate for the success of the ball sports festival. Yuya utilizes this time to head to the kingdom of Arzelia and meet the king who had summoned him some time ago. Upon arriving at the first city on the way to the palace, Yuya is amazed by the variety of species present, such as beast people, elves, and human. He then boards a carriage and heads straight to the capital, where the palace is located. Upon arrival, he's even more astonished by the city's size and incredibly impressed by the grandeur of the distant palace. He proceeds there and meets Owen, who expresses surprise as he didn't expect Yuya to arrive so quickly. Owen promptly takes Yuya to the audience hall to meet the king. Yuya starts to panic as he feels his attire isn't appropriate. Upon seeing him, the king isn't too furious, given his strong attachment to his daughter. He asks if Yuya was indeed the one who saved his daughter, to which Yuya confirms. The king also inquires if Yuya was the scoundrel who seduced his daughter and proposed to her, leaving Yuya startled. The king gets enraged and begins to berate Yuya. After a while, he calms down and asks if Yuya even brought a gift for his beloved daughter. Desperate, Yuya presents a rare bed obtained from a very rare monster in the forest. Upon gifting the bed, surprisingly, Lexia feels incredibly embarrassed, while the king is utterly furious. The reason? In that world, giving someone a bed signifies a desire to sleep with that person. The king, absolutely furious, attempts to attack Yuya. But at the moment of the assault, a strange group appears and starts attacking them. The king asks who they are, and the assassins mention they're about to eat and drink, so it doesn't matter who they are. They swiftly employ a ceiling barrier, and from now on, no one can use magic as the battle commences. Luna defeats some, while Yuya relentlessly takes down each of the treacherous assassins one by one. After dealing with them all, they discover a crest belonging to the prince. Owen seeks Yuya's help in resolving this rebellion. However, for now, Yuya has some free time, and Lexia invites him for a stroll around the capital. He accepts, and they wander around. Owen follows to ensure their safety. Lexia and Luna start quarreling over Yuya, both vying for his attention by hugging him. Meanwhile, the city folk are impressed by Yuya's beauty, wondering if he's a noble from another country. As they stroll, Yuya becomes intrigued by the Adventurers Guild. Luna suggests he registers there to become an adventurer, explaining it could be a way to earn extra money and easier negotiations for any monster materials he acquires during adventure. Yuya agrees, and they head to the guild. Inside, they approach the reception, and Yuya and Luna register as adventurer. While filling out the form, Yuya is confused about how to respond. For the magical affinity section, he writes down 3 elements: water, fire, and wind. What he doesn't know is that it's rare for someone to have one element, let alone 3 as he put down, which is completely unrealistic and unheard of. Afterward, the receptionist asks him to place his hands on a crystal ball. Depending on the color, it indicates one's magical capability. Luna goes first, and the ball turns yellow, indicating she doesn't have much magical ability. Now it's Yuya's turn. Upon placing his hand on the ball, it turns white, there, and starts glowing intensely until the crystal shatters, startling everyone present. They finish the registration and receive their adventurer cards, starting at the lowest rank, F. As they complete missions, this rank will increase. Later, a sorceress approaches Yuya, expressing keen interest in him after the crystal incident. Immediately, she hugs him, expressing a desire to get closer to someone as powerful as him. She introduces herself as Glenna and suggests that someday, when he's free, they should undertake a mission together. Afterward, they embark on a collection mission, something even Lexia can participate in. While collecting, Lexia and Luna start a duel. Whoever collects more herbs gets a day alone with Yuya. Sometime later, Yuya notices Owen's absence and tries to find him. Upon his return, Owen informs Yuya that they've discovered where the prince is hiding and asks for Yuya's help in capturing him. Luna is tasked with safely escorting Lexia back to the palace, while Yuya accompanies Owen and the knights to the alleged location of the prince. Upon arrival, Yuya questions if it's the correct location, as it appears quite empty. One of the knights opens a door and gets stabbed in the leg. Inside, the treacherous prince holds one of the guards hostage. Yuya swiftly commands Knight to attack, freeing the guard. Soon, the prince is cornered, and Owen demands his surrender. The prince becomes frantic, threatening to take his own life. However, upon seeing this, Yuya intervenes and engages in a fight with him, quickly restraining the prince. Owen thanks Yuya, stating that due to him and his animals, they captured the prince. Before they leave, the girl who fought the rabbit in the forest a few episodes ago appears. She mentions that the prince failed his mission and is no longer useful, thus must be eliminated. The prince reveals that the plan was for her to help him ascend to the throne for her elevated position in the palace. However, the girl denies it, revealing that her plan all along was to incite war against several kingdoms, thus eliminating a large number of humans. Her ultimate goal is to exterminate all humans. After this revelation, she attempts to stab the prince's stomach with a knife, but before Owen can intervene, the girl remotely shoots an arrow at his sword, stopping him. Immediately, she starts conjuring numerous magic-infused arrows for her final attack, and Yuya uses wind magic to protect everyone there. Owen expresses gratitude to Yuya, and upon recognizing his strength, the girl decides to retreat for now, having expended too much energy in the fight, and leaves. And that wraps up today's episode. Want to know how the anime will conclude? Well, my friend, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode when it's released. If you enjoyed it, drop that like here on the video, as it helps take it further. Lastly, on this final screen, I've left a sensational video telling the story of Mash, a boy without magic in a world where everything is made with magic. Despite lacking magic, Mash possesses an absurdly gigantic physical strength, solving everything with his fists. Go check it out, it's really hilarious, alright? See you later.